After a very long weekend and a somewhat average WrestleMania this year, we were treated to an excellent episode of WWE Monday Night Raw, and we are here to talk about it right now. What's going on, guys? This is DerekJ Speaks, here to give you my review of the Post WrestleMania 41 edition of Monday Night Raw on April 21st, 2025, live from the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. A very newsworthy edition of Monday Night Raw. You know, these Postmania Raw shows have been pretty subpar over the last couple of years, and tonight really felt like it went back to that past glory where you had a lot of big moments happen. You get your returns, you get your debuts, some twists, some turns, a very lively crowd, and that's exactly what we got all night on what was one of the longest episodes of Raw in quite a while since they moved over to Netflix. And it went off the air with Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman coming out after their joining of forces at the end of night one of WrestleMania. They came out, and Rollins didn't really get to say much until he was interrupted by CM Punk, who came out ready for a fight, stomped him in the corner, turned around and came face to face with Paul Heyman. And as he backed him into the corner, ready to strike, Rollins comes back from behind, gouges his eyes out. Not out, but he gouges at his eyes, puts him down, hits him with a stomp. And Paul Heyman is speaking, and he's talking about how Seth Rollins is now the face of the industry, basically. And they're rolling the credits. They're doing the credits. They're showing the little logo, the copyright thing. An old Triple H black and gold NXT trick, because they then hit Roman Reigns' theme music. Out comes the OTC, gets in the ring, immediately spears Seth Rollins, hits Paul Heyman with a Superman punch. And as he's gearing back, ready to deliver a spear on Paul Heyman, out of nowhere comes a big dude in a hoodie who speared the hell out of Roman Reigns. And it looked like a better spear than the ones that Roman Reigns hit. So that could only mean one thing. It was Bron Breakker. Bron Breakker is here. Punk rolled back in the ring. He ate a spear as well outside of the ring on the floor. Roman got off one quick uppercut to Bron, but with a little bit of distance, Bron ran around the ringside and collided with Roman with one more spear through the timekeeper's area, threw him back in the ring as ordered by Seth Rollins. Rollins hits another stomp on Punk, and then as Bron Breakker is holding down Roman Reigns, Rollins hits a stomp on Roman as well, and the show goes off the air with Paul Heyman raising the arms of his newest clients, the newest Paul Heyman guys, Seth Rollins and Bron Breakker. Excellent angle to close the show. And this entire angle here is exactly what I was hoping for. Literally, down to every last detail of it. As I was watching Paul Heyman being interviewed earlier in the day on the Pat McAfee show, and he was talking about hiring some new beef for himself, and teasing the idea of a new Paul Heyman guy, where some people might look at that and think he's obviously talking about Seth. I popped up in with the own idea in my head of what if it's Bron Breakker, and what if it goes down like this? And pretty much everything that came into my head is exactly what they did here. You have Punk come out first, confronts Rollins, puts him down, tries to go after Heyman, gets put down by Rollins. Rollins and Heyman stand tall. They think it's over. Out comes Roman. He puts down Seth. He goes after Heyman, and then before he can connect with a spear, Bron Breakker comes out and spears him, and Rollins and Breakker are together, aligned with Paul Heyman. This was great. This was great stuff here. Paul Heyman He's been in this one role as the wise man to the tribal chief, the special counsel, all that stuff for the past several years now, and he's done his job well. The pairing of him and Roman was very well done, but it was long overdue for a change. It was time to elevate the tribal chief character, and quite frankly, it was time to elevate Paul Heyman as a character because he became a little stale in his own right. So putting him with some fresh faces will do him a lot of good here. Now, Seth Rollins, him and Heyman, just the two of them together is not the most, inviting or thrilling pairing, only because Seth really doesn't need a mouthpiece. His promos can be a little long and drawn out, but he doesn't necessarily need someone talking for him. And quite frankly, neither does Bron Breakker, but Breakker himself, being this young upstart, ready to just bust out and become a huge star, it was really good to see him and Rollins together here, and just seeing Breakker as a Paul Heyman guy. This is something that has been teased before. Many years ago, Paul Heyman came to NXT on one of those special episodes where Dynamite aired on a Tuesday night. So they were going head to head with NXT, and NXT just loaded up the show with people like John Cena and The Undertaker and all that. On that particular night, there was a main event match between Carmelo Hayes and Bron Breakker. Cena was in Melo's corner, and Paul Heyman was out there in Bron Breakker's corner. So the seeds have been planted for this for many, many years now. And people have even talked about if Paul Heyman were to switch allegiances and be someone else's mouthpiece, Bron Breakker is the perfect person for that. A little bit of that old Brock Lesnar type of feel with Heyman and Breakker together. And now with Seth Rollins there, this could turn into a potential stable. For now, we can focus on the duo, and obviously in the short term, this can set up a big tag team match. So long as Roman Reigns doesn't disappear for 6 months, we could be setting up easily a tag team match for Backlash, where Rollins and Breakker take on Roman and Punk, reluctant partners. They didn't want to team together at Survivor Series, but now they come together for a common cause against these guys. This could be a really good match, a really wild match, and a really cool spot for Bron Breakker. And I even said coming out of WrestleMania when he lost the Intercontinental Championship, it's time to put him in a position where, for Bron Breakker, the trajectory is up. There's nowhere else for him to go except up, and once he lost that Intercontinental Championship, it was time to start thinking about placing him in a position where he can start getting higher up on the card and doing this, being paired up with Seth Rollins, one of the biggest stars in the entire company, Paul Heyman, a legend, a literal Hall of Famer. It's a perfect position for him to be in. And if you want to think even longer term, Paul Heyman was talking about WrestleMania 42 and how Seth is going to be this long-standing guy. You want to think even longer term, you could be looking at a potential WrestleMania 42 match right here, where Bron Breakker eventually just becomes too popular. I mean, he's already super popular with all the barking with the crowd and all that, but this could just make him an even bigger babyface and make the fans even more into him, to the point where you get a Rollins-Bron Breakker match at WrestleMania next year. I'm already looking at this and I'm already planning out a year's worth of story here. You have the two of them together, either as partners, or Bron can be Seth's bodyguard, basically. Heyman can be in Bron's corner as he does his own thing too sometimes. And yes, you continue to elevate these guys until the point Bron Breakker has had enough. He breaks away. Maybe even by that point, Seth Rollins is world champion heading into WrestleMania next year. Give Bron Breakker the Royal Rumble victory. Tease it out. Go classic Triple H Batista WrestleMania 21 build-up. Who he's going to choose. Ultimately chooses Seth. Seth for the World Heavyweight Championship in one of the big matches at WrestleMania next year. Bron wins the title. I'm already thinking ahead of this because this is very exciting. So exciting I hit the table here. But yeah, this is cool. This was a great moment here, a great show closing angle, and this was a great way to cap off an overall super entertaining show that started off very strong too. We had John Cena showing up at the open of the show. He came out and forced the ring announcer to redo his introduction of him and talk about how he's the last world champion, he's the greatest of all time. Of course, all of this got cheers, massive applause and cheers from the crowd, and Cena begins to speak, and he takes the crowd to task that just because they're cheering for him now does not mean that makes everything okay. That's not how a functional relationship works. So he's still on this whole stuff with him against the crowd here. The crowd was eating it all up. They loved him. They were even chanting, "We are sorry," which Cena very cleverly flipped back around on them like, yes, you are sorry. You're a sorry bunch of people. So that was great. At one point during his promo, he mentioned Cody Rhodes. The fans booed him again, and Cena pointed out the hypocrisy of them and how they don't know what they want and how frustrating it is and how they are the problem. Talked about how they booed him on Friday, then they cheered for him, then they booed him again at WrestleMania, and now they're booing him here because the fans are the real heels. You can see different examples of it all throughout this past weekend. Even on this show itself, the fans are the real bad guys. They don't know what they want, and you can't trust them. And John Cena has been justified in his rationale for a very long time now. But one of the big key points of Cena's speech here was talking about 36 dates. So as he went into 2025 knowing that this was his last year, he was mentioning in interviews and all of that he had 36 confirmed dates that he would be appearing throughout 2025. And he went down the list of the ones that he's already completed this year that he's been around, and we are now down to 27. And of course, as he was counting down, the fans were chanting "what?" So there's that. But he mentioned how there are only 27 dates left for him for this year. And he emphasized the point that it's not 27 matches, it's 27 dates, appearances. That means he has 27 more times this year that he will show up on television. He doesn't have to wrestle. He just has to show up. And then after those 27 dates, he is gone. Now, there did get a point in this promo as Cena was talking and berating the crowd that they did turn on him. They were booing him. They were chanting "asshole" at him. So he did get them to turn on him. They weren't cheering him the entire time. So that was good. But yeah, he mentioned how no one in WWE has the skill, the strength, the speed, the ruthless aggression to be like John Cena. No one has the same talent and skills of John Cena, and told everyone to get their cameras out and take a photo of the last real world champion. And as he was speaking here at the end, popped up right behind him was Randy Orton. And once Cena turned around, RKO out of nowhere, huge pop, and Randy picks up the championship belt and holds it up. And just like that, there is your Backlash main event in St. Louis in 3 weeks. Randy Orton challenging John Cena. Heel John Cena versus babyface Randy Orton in St. Louis. Should be fun. Now, I'm someone who for years had to endure the constant John Cena Randy Orton matches, match after match after match. WWE has pushed the narrative that this is one of the greatest rivalries in WWE history, and a lot of people who grew up around that time also have bought into that narrative, and they look at John Cena and Randy Orton as being each other's greatest rival. For me personally, aside from a few good matches here and there and a few cool moments between the two of them, like Randy Orton punting his dad in the head, that was pretty funny. But outside of that, just because the two of them had a whole bunch of matches together does not make them the best rivals together. I found a lot of their matches kind of boring and repetitive due to the fact that we got them so much. And it got to a point where we got it so much that I really never had a desire to see it again. And even being somewhat excited for this, there is a part of me in the back of my head that is kind of like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but because it has been so many years since we've seen the match, and the dynamic is completely shifted. Never at any point during the matches and the feud that the two of them had for years and years was it ever any different. It was always heel Randy Orton, during his bald era where he was just a complete menace, John Cena, always the babyface, Randy Orton, always the heel. The dynamic never changed. So the fact that the roles are reversed here, now John Cena as a heel, it's still a work in progress. He's still not the most believable heel on TV, but he's doing his best. And putting him up against Randy Orton for Backlash should be pretty good. I imagine they might announce the match and make it official this week on SmackDown. John Cena has been announced. He is scheduled to appear on SmackDown this week, so I imagine Randy will be there, and that's where we'll get the official match announcement that this is the championship match at Backlash. And having the two big main event matches at Backlash be Cena and Orton for the title, and potentially a tag team match with Punk and Breaker against Roman and Punk, that is already a top billing, a really cool top of the card for the next pay-per-view, and I'm excited for it. I'm excited to see how it plays out. Again, Cena as a heel has not been lighting the world on fire so far. I still feel the same way I felt about the finish of WrestleMania Sunday. So, this good show tonight does not undo my feelings on that. Both can be true. That could still be a bad finish, and this was still a really, really good show. Both things can be true at the same time. But I'm still giving them a chance with his Cena heel turn. His promo here on this show was probably the most convincing he has been as a heel so far. So that's good, and hopefully we can tap into that a little bit more. And yeah, so if they have their match at Backlash, that should be very interesting. I don't have a lot of high expectations for the match itself. I think the potential promos and build-up and the atmosphere will help carry the actual in-ring action, because as evidenced during the match, which I know it was by design, I know Cena wrestled that way on purpose, it was still very evident that John Cena is not the same John Cena. But it should still be a fun time. Elsewhere on the show, we got a lot of really cool moments. We got a heel turn as the women's tag team titles were on the line yet again in a rematch from Sunday. Liv and Raquel going back after Lyra and Becky for the titles, and they won them back. They wanted to win the titles for a fourth time, and that's exactly what they did. Liv and Raquel regain their tag team titles in a match that was much better than the one at WrestleMania, probably even longer too. And at WrestleMania, Becky was the one to pin Liv and win the titles. Here, Liv pinned Lyra to get the belts back. And after the match, you could pretty much see it coming as Becky helped Lyra to her feet. She put her down with a clothesline and was yelling at her. Lyra sold this very interestingly. She wasn't really knocked out. She could see what was going on, and she looked heartbroken and disturbed by what Becky Lynch, her hero, was doing to her here. And Becky laid her out with a couple of manhandle slams. And again, to the point of the fans being heels, Becky beats up poor Lyra here, plants her with her finishing move, and the caring fans that they are were chanting one more time after she was hitting the move. So there you go. But this was a good direction here. Saw a few people talking about how oh, why couldn't they have just done this at WrestleMania? Why did they have to deprive Liv Morgan of a WrestleMania spot? Why couldn't they have had Becky return and just attack her? Why did Bayley have to be cost her match? By the way, they announced that Bayley is out with a separated shoulder, which of course is fake, but that's the storyline announcement for it. And, there's some justification for those feelings, but they wanted a WrestleMania moment. They wanted Becky to come back, get this huge Mania moment. Now, I'm sure they'll explain it differently on the show next week, but the way I see it is Becky came back. She stepped in to be at the side of Lyra Valkyria and make it to WrestleMania, win the championship, get this huge moment in her triumphant comeback. And then 24 hours later, Lyra ruined it for Becky, and she was embarrassed and she was ashamed of Lyra for putting her in that position and losing the tag team titles for the two of them. And so she attacked her. And you can even circle back around to the whole Bayley being attacked thing. Liv and Raquel were already on the defense saying that they had nothing to do with it. I'm sure they didn't. And if they want to, they can easily credit Becky as being the one who attacked Bayley. And this way, you set up Becky and Lyra for the title, the Women's Intercontinental Championship, which would be a good boost for that championship, which needs all the credibility and help it can get. And same can be said for Lyra Valkyria. It can elevate her to work with a big star like Becky Lynch. So both of those elements can be helped out here. You can reignite a Becky-Bayley feud with Bayley coming back wanting revenge against her. And you can just combine all three of them and put them in a triple threat match, because there is still unfinished business between Bayley and Lyra. Lyra did beat her for the IC title in a defense of the title a few weeks ago, but Bayley clearly still has her sights set on that championship. So if there's a way to combine all three of them together when the time is right, you can easily do that. And again, that puts Lyra in an even bigger position, working with two of the famous four horsewomen, two of the biggest stars in the company, Bayley and Becky. All this is done to really elevate Lyra Valkyria. Even if she loses the championship to Becky Lynch, which I imagine she will, whether it's in a one-on-one encounter or a triple threat like I suggested, I imagine Becky is going to get that belt and she'll hold it for a little bit, and Lyra will have to work to take it back from her. And that's a story being told in other aspects of the company right now too, but I think it works here too. We had the New Day appear on the show and were interrupted by the Alpha Academy, not Chad Gable, Otis and Tozawa, with Maxine Dupree, reminding everyone that the last time these two teams faced off, Otis and Tozawa beat them in under a minute. So they challenged them to a tag team title match, and we were about to get it. A referee ran out and everything. Then the lights went out, and we had the return of Rusev. Rusev returns on Rusev Day. This was less Rusev, more Miro making his debut in WWE. You just look at him and it's like, that's not Rusev, that's Miro, but we're going to call him Rusev. So he comes out there, New Day bails, and Rusev takes out the two baby faces, even puts Otis in the accolade. So good to see Rusev back. We haven't seen him in a match since December of 2023. So it's good to see him back. And a lot of people have speculated, they've discussed, there's been rumors about what went down in AEW with Miro. I ain't here to talk about that. Quite frankly, I don't care about that anymore. Whatever happened, happened. Let's just start fresh, start anew, and start over. This is Rusev. He's back in the company. He once had a lot of fame in this company. The whole Rusev Day stuff really took off and really got him over. The previous administration did not really take full advantage of that. So I don't know if they'll recapture that same magic, but this is a chance to really rebuild him in a new light under new circumstances and really start over. So hopefully they can do that with him. I don't have the highest of hopes, but I do have pretty high hopes that something good will happen for Rusev here in the company. We had a segment with Iyo Sky celebrating her championship victory at WrestleMania in that amazing triple threat match when she was interrupted by the NXT Women's Champion Stephanie Vaquer, and she challenged Iyo to a match. And Iyo accepted. Adam Pearce came out, made it official, and we got an impromptu Iyo Sky Stephanie Vaquer match. And the crowd was into it. A little quiet in the beginning, but as the two of them started hitting a lot of their big flashy spots, and of course when Stephanie hit that one move, the legs wrapped around the head, smashing into the mat, the one that makes Booker T do whatever he does in NXT, that move, that got one of the biggest reactions of the entire match. But these two had a really good match here. Nothing overly fantastic. It was just cool to see a different match on the show. And you can complain about, they just did this out of nowhere, champion versus champion on free television like it's nothing. Iyo and Stephanie Vaquer, that could be a big match to build up for a pay-per-view down the line. All of that is true, but this is a special night. This is a special show, and you want to have some cool stuff. When the crowd, heard the challenge get accepted and they said the match was going to happen right here and now, they popped huge for it. They were very in love with the idea of having this match, and it was cool for them, A lot of times they give these crowds blue balls when they tease some of these big matches, and then they say, we're going to wait until the pay-per-view, or we're going to wait till next week, or we're going to do it on a completely different show in a completely different city in 2 or 3 days from now. So it was cool to see it here. And of course, it did not have a clean finish, which no one expected it to have. They got a couple of minutes, but not a clean finish. It got interrupted by Roxanne Perez, who attacked Iyo, and then as she went face-to-face with Stephanie got attacked from behind by Julia. And Julia and Roxanne Perez stood tall together until they were interrupted by Rhea Ripley, who came out. She cleared away Roxanne. She went face-to-face with Julia until Julia backed down. And then Rhea picked up the championship belt, handed it back to Iyo, and basically said, I'm coming for you, and I'm coming for this title. So, all in the span of 15 minutes or so, we had Iyo Sky, Stephanie Vaquer, Roxanne Perez, Julia, and Rhea Ripley all on the show. And that was just a great highlight and great moment to really showcase how deep the talent roster is with the women in WWE right now, between Raw, NXT, even SmackDown. Probably to a lesser degree SmackDown, but you can include SmackDown. They got some hitters on that show too. But just seeing these 5 women in particular on this show was really cool. I don't think this is a call-up yet for Stephanie or Julia. Roxanne, I do think so. Maybe not this exactly, but I do think this is leading to a call-up for her. Because as of this recording, tomorrow night, Tuesday night, airing NXT, Roxanne will be challenging Stephanie Vaquer for the NXT Women's Championship. I imagine that's a win for Stephanie, and I think that will officially mark the end of Roxanne Perez's time in NXT. Maybe they'll do a few more things with her to finish her off, but it's very clear to me that she's coming back up to the main roster. And I say coming back only because we just saw her at the Rumble, we saw her at Elimination Chamber in Toronto, and they started something with her and Bayley that just got dropped out of nowhere. So I don't know if they're going to pick that back up. Maybe they'll reveal that Roxanne was the one who attacked Bayley, and they'll come back around to that story. I don't know. But Roxanne's time in NXT is definitely coming to an end soon. So there you go. Also on this show, Jey Uso, the brand new World Heavyweight Champion. He made an appearance. Really cool tribute video for him to a Macklemore song. Really cool to see. Uso comes out, gets a huge ovation, cuts his little promo, and the crowd was just loving him. Out came Sami Zayn, who we have not seen on TV since Elimination Chamber. So he shows up here and is here to congratulate Jay and says he's proud of him and he deserves this championship and wants to celebrate. So the two of them get on opposite corners. They're yeeting again. They're playing Jay's music again. And at one point during this segment here, Sami gets off the apron. He's in the ring and he's directly behind Jay Uso. And you could even hear the crowd was reacting to this a little bit extra because we just saw what happened with Paul Heyman at WrestleMania. We just saw what happened with Becky earlier in the night. So there was definitely some subtle teases here about what Sami was going to do. It had me on the edge of my seat, that's for sure. But nothing came of it. Then out came Jimmy Uso. He came out, he was hugging both of them. All three hugged. They all did their crazy handshake together, and all three of them were yeeting. They were celebrating, and they left together. I was just paying close attention. My eyes were glued on this all the way up to the ramp until I'm just waiting. Like, are they going to cut away? And they finally did, and it's like, okay. But I know what I saw with that Sami Zayn stuff, and I know they knew what they were doing when they were teasing that. So I don't know. We didn't get anything tonight, but maybe that was supposed to be a tease of maybe something that could happen later on. I don't know. We'll see. But nothing tonight, but it was just all good. But it was not all good for the rest of the night for the commentators, who, of course, were out there yeeting. They were dapping up Jey Uso. As the fans were chanting, "You tap out," in reference to Gunther. You could even hear Cole on commentary talking about it. Him and McAfee were having a fun time talking about it. And this led into, honestly, with the show closing angle being great, the opening segment with Cena being great, this right here that I'm about to talk about was probably my favorite thing on the entire show. And it had nothing to do with any of the world champions, any of the new returning people, any of the new debuts, the NXT women, none of that. It had everything to do with the commentators, because they went to a commercial break, they come back, and Gunther is at ringside chastising and yelling at Cole and McAfee on commentary. Cole is he's saying that he's just doing his job, he's talking and all that kind of stuff, and he said, look, I'm not the one who tapped out at WrestleMania. And this ticked off Gunther. He goes over, he smacks the headset off of Cole, he pushes McAfee, and then he locks Cole in the sleeper. He didn't get all of it, or at least he didn't hold him in it for that long, until McAfee runs over and just decks Gunther right in the face and shoves him away. And now the two of them, there's some distance between the two of them, but now they're face to face. Out comes a whole bunch of officials. Adam Pearce comes out. They're separating the two of them. And as McAfee's walking away, turns his back, Gunther comes up from behind and snatches him up and locks him in a very deep sleeper hold and puts him down. You have referees trying to pull Gunther off of him. He is choking the life out of Pat McAfee. And over on the other side, you have a bunch of guys coming out of the front row in the crowd trying to hop over and get over to them, but now they're being held back. It's all the crew, the people who are on the Pat McAfee show on ESPN, all of his guys, his buddies who do the show with him. They were over there and they're trying to run over and stop him, but officials are now holding them back. You got referees and Pierce trying to get Gunther off of McAfee. McAfee's face is turning bright red and pink. This was incredibly well done. You have the crowd chanting, "Fuck you, Gunther." All well done to perfection. Finally, they get Gunther off of him, send him to the back, and now everyone is helping McAfee to the back. His face is red. He's all out of sorts. He's coughing. He's spitting up, all that stuff, until they cut to a commercial. They come back, replay it. Now Joe Tessitore is out at the commentary desk. He's out there. He doesn't even have his coat on. He just kind of ran out there to do commentary. They cut to the back. They're helping McAfee to the trainer's office, and Pierce told Michael Cole to take the rest of the night off, but Cole said that he's not going to let a bully stop him from doing his job. And this got a huge pop from the crowd. When McAfee punched Gunther, that got a huge Pat McAfee chant. And when Cole said that he was going to still do his job, that got an even bigger Michael Cole chant and a pop for him. So crazy how on this show, two of the biggest reactions all night went to Michael Cole and Pat McAfee. Now, I like Pat. I do. His commentary in recent months, years, has not been all that great to endure. So, in my mind, Gunther turned into the biggest babyface in the world on this show for what he did to Pat McAfee. So, there's that. But in all seriousness, this was a great angle. And Cole, obviously very upset over this, and was telling Pierce that he needs to do something about this, and how if the commentary team, if they just can't do their jobs, if they can't be allowed to voice their opinions and all that stuff, and if people like Gunther are just going to come out and attack them and assault them like this, then, you know, the inmates are going to be running the asylum. So he was very upset about this. Pierce said he would handle it. I imagine there'll be some kind of fine. Maybe they might even suspend Gunther for a little bit. Ultimately, was this something for Gunther to just get his heat back after he tapped out at WrestleMania, lost the championship to Jey Uso? If that's all it is, this was a hell of a way to give him his heat back. He got it back in spades, you know. Of course, the fans still chanting "you tapped out" at him. That's fine. He can endure that. But he got mega heat for putting down Cole and McAfee on this show. So if that's all it was, cool. But could this potentially lead to a Gunther-Pat McAfee match? That's also a question worth posing. Maybe. I'll just say now, I have no interest in seeing Gunther versus Pat McAfee in a match. But maybe they could do something. And for the people saying that, oh, well, Pat McAfee, you know, this should be a permanent write-off for him now. He's completely incapacitated and can't do this commentary role anymore. Tomorrow, he shouldn't be doing the Pat McAfee show. You know, like, look, it's a sleeper hold on a non-wrestler. I get it. You know, he got choked out. I understand. But, and I'm not trying to downplay the severity of a sleeper hold. You know, you get put to sleep, literally. But I think he'll be okay if he shows up on his show tomorrow. Even if he wears a neck brace, pulls a Tony Khan and wears a neck brace or something like that. We've seen him do it before. So it's not completely unheard of. So maybe he will. He has done that before. So he has played up the whole kayfabe stuff before. And even here, he sold this very well. So with all the coughing and all that. So maybe he'll sell it even onto his own show. But this was great stuff. And if this leads to a Gunther-Pat McAfee match, God bless him. The fans love Pat, so they'll get behind him and hate Gunther. But boy, what a step down for Gunther in many people's eyes, from working with Jey Uso and tapping out to him at WrestleMania to working and wrestling a commentator. What a fall for him. But at least he would win. At least he would win. And finally, we'll talk. Well, there was also an AJ Styles segment on this show. AJ had a backstage interview talking about his loss to Logan Paul. He got interrupted by Karrion Kross. And the two of them kind of went back and forth for a little bit. Karrion Kross was the talk of the day. He cut a very, very good worked shoot promo on one of the Post WrestleMania post shows on YouTube. I think it was something with Sam Roberts and Megan Morant. They were doing interviews, and Karrion Kross came in there, and he was a house of fire. This was for him what that Talking Smack promo was for The Miz all those years ago in 2016. So If you remember that and you didn't see this, this is the equivalent of that for Karrion Kross. So he was great there. He was on the show here. He never appeared out in front of the crowd. He appeared in this segment. He appeared earlier in a backstage segment as the New Day were walking by. There was a giant push Karrion Kross sign in the crowd on the hard cam at several points in the night. So, between this, he got a big pop at WrestleMania when he showed up. There were loud boos for him when he got, well, not for him, but there were loud boos when he got eliminated during the Andre Battle Royal. I don't know, man. Got to take advantage of this somehow. And whatever a push for Karrion Kross looks like, hopefully they do it. Because the promo work that he cut was great stuff. And I would love to see more of that from him. And then lastly, we will talk about the Intercontinental Championship match between Dominic Mysterio and Penta on this show. Dom still widely over as a babyface, despite still being a heel and still being aligned with the Judgment Day. And I mean all of the Judgment Day. Finn Balor showed up. He looks to have no ill will towards Dominic, although in an earlier backstage segment, he was looking pretty hard at that Intercontinental Championship. And then during this match, as it was winding down, we had Carlito distracting the referee when we had the sudden return of JD McDonough. We haven't seen him for quite a while after that devastating injury to him all those months ago at the announce table and breaking a lung and all that. Just wicked stuff. So cool to see him. But he played a distraction here for Dominic to pick up the win, giving Penta his second, maybe, pinfall loss since debuting. So both Lucha Bros lose during this WrestleMania weekend. Penta lost twice. He lost 2 nights in a row because even though he didn't get pinned at WrestleMania, he still lost, and then he got pinned here. So you'll have the people who don't know what they're talking about. They'll say, oh, Penta got buried and all that stuff. He's done for. He'll be fine. He might even come back after that championship. He might even eventually win it. I don't know. I think Balor's going to get it. And we'll see. We got to pay attention to these crowd reactions because all these reactions to people, Cena getting cheered, Cody getting booed, Bianca getting booed, Dominic getting cheered, all this stuff has been isolated to WrestleMania weekend. Now, in some cases, like Bianca, she's been getting booed for quite a while, so we'll see if that continues beyond WrestleMania, and if it does, they should highly consider switching her into the heel role. For someone like Dominic, he was getting wildly cheered at WrestleMania and on this show, so as they continue to push this story with him and Finn Balor along, might they consider keeping Dom in the babyface role and have Finn be kind of the heel coming out of it? I don't see that happening. I think Finn ultimately will be the babyface and we'll get kind of that return of the old Finn Balor, the Prince, that version of babyface Finn Balor, who might still lose to Dominic because I think that he's going to have a hold over that Intercontinental Championship for a while, but he'll run through a couple of babyfaces on the show, but ultimately there will be a breakdown, and Balor and Dom will collide. There seems to still be some tension there because even here, if you paid attention to Balor's facial expressions, he clearly did not, it looked like at least, he did not know JD was coming back. And he was playing it off, he was smiling, but he definitely looked confused and still a little perturbed, I should say, by Dom and the championship. So there's still something there. But a lot of big stuff happened on this show, and it was really great to see. Like I mentioned, we used to have these Post WrestleMania Raw shows for years that were fun. The crowd was exciting. They'd hijack the show. They'd cheer for so many different people. It was a fun time. And then after a while, it went down. Then COVID, which kind of killed it for a little bit. And then even coming out of COVID, the shows just didn't have that same specialness to them. And we all remember that infamous show back in 2023, easily the worst out of all of them. Last year, we kind of got it a little bit, but this year was great. And even outside of the whole Postmania stuff, this by itself was one of the best episodes of Raw all year so far. And one of the best episodes of Raw in a very long time. Months, years, it's up there. It's one of the best. So, great stuff here from WWE. Hopefully, they can continue this momentum into Friday's SmackDown. We'll see Cena, hopefully Orton, might be getting the debut of Aleister Black on that show, among many other things. It's a 3-hour show, so, SmackDown has been pretty difficult to get through for the most part ever since they went to 3 hours, and quite frankly, even longer than that. But hopefully they can put on a good show there as we head into Backlash next month and beyond. And a lot of the stories and faces that popped up and started here on this show, hopefully that can carry us forward and bring us some really good creative stuff in the next coming weeks and bring us some really entertaining episodes of Raw. I know not every week is going to look like the show tonight, but if they can at least come close, then this should be a pretty fun Post WrestleMania ride. So, but that's it for me. I will be back to cover SmackDown at the end of the week, and then I'm taking a break because these guys here have worn me out. But this has been fun. Thank you for tuning in. If you like what you saw, heard, all that good stuff, you know what to do. And follow me on Twitter/X at DerekJ Speaks. Till next time, thank you. Take care.